We are back to talk through plenty of teams. Hopefully the voice is on the improve, but Titans kick things off here and their next three, and that leads us up to the bye rounds, which is good fun. And you can now see a nice clear runway of sort of the next 8 games that become pretty important, which gets us from 10 all the way through to 16 there in 17 with the 8 there of the bye period, which will, it's really going to make or break a lot of seasons, to be honest. If you can get through pretty well, if you get the best scorers across this time, if you potentially make the least amount of trades, you can go pretty hard in the back end of the bye period and then have sort of 10, 12 or something like that to get through the last 8 rounds of the season, 9 rounds of the season. That could be pretty cool. So this kind of stuff, it is important. Titans, don't target anyone from them. They have Newcastle this week, who should smash them. Then it's Canberra, then it's the bye, then it's Melbourne, then it's Brisbane. So it's gross. Stay away. Beau Fermor's the only guy you could have, but he's playing well enough that he should be in Origin, hey. So if you didn't get last week, he's over 700k now. It's probably a no. Storm, they have an awkward schedule with buys in 12 and 15, but it is Tigers, Cronulla, Titans, and Cowboys, the 4 teams they play within this next 5 games. They're actually a team that, if you're looking at Jerome Hughes, then that's sweet. I don't think it affects you too much. You've probably pretty well set in round 12 for halves. Maybe in round 13 you're in a bit of strife for it, so that's where it could be helpful for you. But Hughes would be your main guy to have a look at, and then Eli Katoa coming off a big score as well. He did a good job with big tackle numbers. He could, after losing a little bit of cash, can be a decent option as well. But Dragons, you've got Warriors, you've got Brisbane, the next 2 before their bye, and then they miss round 16 as well. Again, with them, it's probably only Couchman Egan that you want to look at and hold on to, and I think that they'll be important come that round 15 bye. So you probably want to hold on to those guys as long as you can, and the next 2 for them, somewhat hard. Yeah, and if you're looking at Supercoach, it's probably, like I should have done last week, sell Gutho and sort that position out in fullback. For the Knights, they have the best draw. It's not even close for the next 8 weeks. From round 10 to round 17, they don't miss a game. And then they do miss in 18 and 22, but we can deal with that much later in the piece. What we see year to year, it's very, very hard to get teams like this. So if you do happen to get a hold of one, you see here the Warriors, Raiders, Eagles from now on are very important as well. Those types of teams where you can get through for a good while in a row. Get through round 12, 13, and then decide from there. So the Knights with a lot of green as well in Titans, Para, Penrith, they would be green for that round 12 without their Origin stars. St. George the following week. So it's a really good stretch of games, and I think targeting outside backs, the edges for the Knights, and some people looking at middles as well, that could be really helpful. And they just get you all the way through, plus they have somewhat, not super difficult matchups. So Knights are really fun and the best team to target, in my opinion. And if they can play somewhat okay, then they'll be really good. Warriors, they have the Dragons, Dolphins, Canberra, the next 3. So it's a pretty good little setup for them. Followed by the Souths, who in round 13 should be back to a little bit of health. But also a pretty decent team to target. If you have Metcalf and these guys, great. If you've got Clark, awesome. Who would you target outside of that? In the outside backs, it's probably limited. So it's generally just holding on to guys like that. Doggies have got Canberra, Roosters, Dolphins, the next 3. I think for them it's fine. You're not going to get as beautiful a matchup for Karaz as what we saw last week. And going forward, it won't be as easy for him. So don't expect hundreds, but I think you can still expect 50s. And it's still a decent pick. Waiting on Preston news. You had Crichton, Max King gets a little bit cheaper after a couple of low ones here in the last few weeks. So keep an eye out on those types of players, but they do miss 13 and 16. So 2 minor buys, they play all the majors. Cowboys. They've got Penrith, Manly bye. Penrith's playing a little bit better. Manly will be okay. I still think Drinky scores solid. If you got Jackson Purdue, I understand potentially moving on from him. I think Mitch in his video mentioned that he's looking to do so and cash in on those good gains. So check out his video as well, guys. It's another awesome one, another great 30 minutes of fun. And all the other round wrap stuff where I gave a bit more of a a deeper dive into the players as if they're a buy, hold, sell as a reaction to those games. TLT this afternoon as well. Look forward to that. But Eels, we move on to them next. Cowboys, they're really good come round 13. Don't have to buy now, can wait till then. So we'll talk further in other weeks. For the Eels, they have a big run as well, all the way through to 15. Not a lot of guys you should be targeting. You may own a few like myself, and the run of Dolphins, Newcastle, Manly is fine. To be fair though, if you're up on that right edge, which Katonga's not anymore, you'll get some traffic there with Herbie and Bradman Best and Dylan Lucas and these guys over that few weeks. And then Manly, Penrith, Bulldogs. So it's not a great one to target, but just hold. Eagles have Cronulla, North Queensland, and then Parramatta. Pretty solid 3 weeks overall for them. You'd imagine some decently high-scoring games, sort of 20 plus. They should be able to score in all of those, so Garrick should do fairly well. And it's just a good stretch without a bye. So they play the first two majors, and that's where Garrick can come into that as well. Olaquatu if he doesn't make Origin, and Turbo as well, but probably makes Origin. Roosters missed this week, and I think there's a lot of guys that are holds, and I've put that into the private group already, just a list on all those guys and all the guys that are out this week and what I personally would do with him. And I think a lot of them are holds. Some may be sells, you may be forced to with injuries and stuff this week, which I saw in the comments. That makes sense, but at least I think you want to get through round 12, 13 and decide in 14. But in amongst that, they have 3 tougher matchups as well. So holds for numbers, and most of them are scoring well, but they may slow down against Canterbury. We'll see. Panthers play this week, then they have the bye. So have a look at the Origin guys. They're going to miss a chunk of games here and backups and all that kind of stuff. The Origin guys from Roosters, they're going to miss a lot of games as well. Crichtons, Watson, all that. Panthers, if you can get through this one and hold for 11, their non-Origin guys are going to be pretty cool with Newcastle, Para, West before they're buying 15. So that's something to look at if you got Jenkins or something like that. But the Origin guys probably a different story. For the Tigers, they got Melbourne into South, so it's a tougher game into an easier game. If you've got any Tigers out, Tigers halves, outside backs, then your stuff for Toa could be a tougher one this week. But if you can get through the South one, it might be okay. Is that enough? And then they missed 12-15, so could be sells in there. And then from the Broncos, just so up and down, but they come into South and Dragons. So if you have Broncos 1-7s, edges, then definitely a hold this week. We saw a good score from Cobbo out there as well. Dolphins, they had Parramatta, Warriors, and Doggies. So good one this week. 2 slightly harder matchups following that, but their bye schedule is they play 12, which is great. Miss 13, miss 18. So they've got a good little run in there. I think they are a decent team to target. There's just a limited amount of actual guys to have a look at. And hopefully we'll see Maxi Plath over the next couple of weeks. Sharkies have Manly, Melbourne, Roosters, followed by a bye for them and a good little stretch as well. It's the exact same as the Dolphins. So that's where you're looking at Hines, looking at Nicaragua, Kale Iro. Who's else? Wilton's out. People might have grabbed Billy Burns, but even guys like Jesse Ramian and Mulatalo, they all have their times in the sun. You're looking at their middles in AFB and McInnes. So lots of relevant players, and there's a few that are decent buys, and we'll discuss them in the best buys video coming up tomorrow. And then Raiders to finish. Dogs into Titans, Warriors, Roosters, South. So it's a pretty good run up until they're buying 15. They play 2 major ones. Guys like Tarpany, really interesting. We'll see what's happening with Horse and that whole HIA situation. Tamale, a really solid hold, and unsure how they're going to go this week in general, but following that, the Titans that week could be a big one. So I'm holding guys like Nicholson longer term. If you want to hold Starling, you probably get some good work through the middle. These types of things in that one. All right, quick look at private group and then into the tips as well. Private group team did lose some ranks, unfortunately, last week. Got under 1,000, 993 with a few missteps. And Egan on the bench, selling Toya, having Purdue, having Brimson, these types of things. But I've just moved things around in the squad just to give it a bit of a look and let us know in the comments how you would play this side coming into this week. We potentially have a couple of guys out with Horsburgh there. Toa could be out. So at worst, we could have 16 coming into this week before trades. And thankfully, we have left a few in the bank. Sitting there with 23 is a good spot. Move things around the starting. So I think the majority of these guys in the 13 we could hold. But Purdue is probably the one that could be on the chopping block. Same with Brimson. But I think I'd sell Brimson before Purdue if this was it's partly my team. Mamazelis should go. We don't have another hooker to loop. And that's the only way you would look at that position. In my situation, I've got Clark and Riley Smith. So looping Riley first game could be an option there. In the hooking spot. But he's probably going to be, he will be a sell. And we've got Brimson, maybe Horsburgh. I think Nafahu White's a hold. Stafford Toa could go as well. So it's probably a 2 or 3 trade week for this side. I think just to clean up the 17, improve the starting side a little bit. It's good to have Garrick back. That just makes that wing fullback a little bit nicer. But maybe having another one of those strike weapons down there could be cool. And improving the 17 a little bit, as we said. So that could be the way to play it. And then my tips, we ended up with, I think, 4 in the end last week, which is pretty gross. After the Storm loss, I picked the Broncos against Panthers and Rabbitohs against Knights. I didn't change that one in the end after their extra outs. And then the Finns up against the Roosters. So that was a bit of a tough one. And as I said, a pretty good year last year for tipping, and it hasn't worked out thus far this year. Eels, I'm going to tip against the Finns. I'm expecting a little Mitch Moses show before Origin. Knights, I'm going to tip against Titans. We've got Broncos v Bunnies. Raiders and Dogs going to be a tough one, but I will tip Doggies in this one. I think the back and forth, the tough match up there against the Storm will hurt the Raiders a little bit, even though they got the win, and they got a couple of close ones the last 2 weeks, both really tough, hard-fought comeback wins. This one for the Dogs wasn't a very hard victory, and they had a bye a few weeks ago. I think they're a little bit fresher than Raiders, and I'm going to tip on that. Warriors against the Dragons, we can't tip against the Warriors, even though they are away from home and not as good there. Panthers, I will tip against Cowboys at this point. Just not happy with their defense, and if Panthers can play anything like last week, I think they win this game. Even away from home, we've got Storm against the Tigers, even though they're not playing well, and then Eagles, I'm going to tip against the Sharks. Just don't think they're in the greatest form right now, and that's how we're going to play our tipping this week as well. So there you go, 3-game impact, the tipping, the private group team, all the good stuff for you Tuesday morning. Go check out Mitch's video as well, and a big thanks and a big ups to everyone who made it to the end of this video. Thanks so much, guys, and we'll catch you in that next video, which will be TLT.